this is about it for the 2023 season, guys. Again, it's crazy how time flies when you're having fun, and certainly it is always a lot of fun. The beauty is always in the banter when it comes to these SEC power rankings. So without further ado, guys, we're going to go ahead and dive into this. At number 14, they didn't move out of this spot. Actually, yes, they did. Forgive me. They moved out of this spot 1 week when I felt that Arkansas was most deserving. But the team that held on and stayed in the cellar more often than any, the Vanderbilt Commodores at number 14. And guys, we've already seen Vandy, couple quarterbacks hitting the transfer portal. Ken Seals and A.J. Swan. Bye-bye. See you later. Vandy finishes the season 2-10 and winless in SEC play. And you talk about, guys, most disappointing teams in college football this season. I know Vandy's not the first one you think of, but I mean, we're talking about a team that, guys, they were the easy bet over the offseason. Man, hammer the over 3.5. Love what Clark Lee's doing. I didn't hammer that bet, but I mean, I like Clark Lee. I like what he's doing in Nashville. He's a Vandy guy. He gets the challenges. I think there's a lot that's out of his control that makes winning at Vandy almost impossible, but certainly a season that fell short of any sort of expectations they may or may not have had in Nashville. So Vandy at number 14. At number 13, the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Guys, after a really rough campaign, firing Zach Arnett, obviously just hired Jeff Lebby, but their season ends in an Egg Bowl loss to Ole Miss, 17-7. And now, guys, we know Will Rogers, in a really surprising announcement, hits the transfer portal. Somebody's going to get a really, really good quarterback when they snag up Will Rogers. But really disappointing season in Starkville. You know, it's a shame because had the death of Mike Leach not occurred, I think this is a State team that could have won 8 or 9 games this year. They could have been a problem in the SEC West. But because of the turnover, the changes, the turmoil, it really just sent their season for a spiral. And it's a shame for the folks in Starkville. But Mississippi State I do have at number 13. Barely ahead of them. Barely. At number 12, I've got the Arkansas Razorbacks. Really, I should have done a tie for 13th because these two deserve to be in the 13 spot. I gave Arkansas the nod at number 12. Obviously, they get boat raced in the final game of the season against the Missouri Tigers. You know, thought maybe, okay, you know, Arkansas, they're going to have a boost because they got Sam Pittman back. No, that did not help at all. Arkansas, another team that was massively disappointing, and I think obviously Pittman enters a 2024 season where he is on the hottest of hot seats, and his job is absolutely on the line. But Arkansas, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, man. I mean, they had good players. That's what's crazy, and I think just Arkansas, I think, is a great example of what can happen when you miss, when you swing and miss on coordinator hires, when you swing and miss on assistant coaches. I think Arkansas is a great example of what can take place, truly. So Arkansas at number 12. And number 11, guys, I've got South Carolina. I've got the Gamecocks, guys. South Carolina, at the end of the day, they were who we thought they were from week one. That's the best way to describe it. Everyone wanted to write off week one as, man, it's the first game. It's a season opener. It's all good, man. Carolina's going to do their song and dance on a beamer and get better and improve. And it just never happened. This football team was what they were. And I think you look at the injuries up front of the offensive line, right? It never gave South Carolina a chance to really get going and build any momentum and dig themselves out of the hole they created so early on. But that loss to Clemson, getting knocked out of bowl contention because of your arch rival, thanks in part to your arch rival, I can't think of many worse ways to end the season. And that was really a game, guys, against Clemson that I think just really shined light on all of South Carolina's deficiencies this season. That's what that game did. That's all it was. It just shined a light back on, hey, South Carolina, this is who you are. This is who. Don't let the last couple of weeks make you forget that. You had that nice, crazy win against Kentucky at home at night. Will he be shaken? I think Clemson reminded folks, hey, those issues the Gamecocks had back in week one and all throughout the year, they're still there. They're still there. They never went anywhere, and a really disappointing end of the season for a football team, guys, that, you know what, at the end of the day, listen, South Carolina just was not a good football team this year. They just weren't. They just weren't. They had some good individual players, but South Carolina, at the end of the day in 2023, when we look back, you say to yourself, and what I say to myself is South Carolina was a really bad team with an exceptional quarterback. That's how you define the Gamecocks in 2023. At number 10, speaking of your arch rival knocking you out of going to a bowl game, the Florida Gators, they suffered that against Florida State, had the lead in that game, self-inflicted wounds, mistakes, dumb mistakes, hurt Florida. I mean, guys, you talk about hot seats. Billy Napier's on one. There's no question. They miss a bowl game, even if they go 6-6 next year, guys. I mean, what's the minimum number of wins that keeps Billy in Gainesville? I think it's probably 8. Maybe 7. Maybe 7. Probably 8. A Florida team playing without Graham Mertz against Florida State. I mean, I thought they gave FSU a valiant effort. And I will say this. I thought Florida was really competitive this year in a lot of their losses. But 5-7 ain't going to cut it in Gainesville. They are 10th in my rankings. At number 9, guys, I've got the Auburn Tigers. And Auburn lost to Bama, sure. And I know you had the embarrassing loss to New Mexico State. But I think you look at this year. I think you look at this year as a positive if you're an Auburn fan. And from the standpoint of, like, you can see it. You can see what Hugh Freeze is building. You can see what Hugh Freeze is implementing, the changes that are happening. And, guys, once he gets his quarterback and gets some more talent on campus, I think Auburn's going to be scary. I mean, you could argue they should have beaten Alabama. I mean, give Bama all the credit in the world, but, I mean, Auburn had the Crimson Tide beat and let them snag it away at the last second. So I got Auburn at 9, but I'm very bullish on Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers moving forward. At number 8, I've got the Texas A&M Aggies, who fall to the LSU Tigers over the weekend. Of course, the big news for them wasn't the game. It was the hiring of Mike Elko. It'll be interesting to see what the bowl game situation looks like for A&M and where they go and who they play and what have you. But, A&M, disappointing season. Led to Jimbo Fisher's firing, though, and they can begin anew now with Mike Elko at the head coaching spot. At number 7, maybe the most impressive team, one of the most impressive over the weekend, Kentucky goes into Louisville, 10th-ranked Louisville Cardinal, and beats Louisville 38-31. And I'd like to take a moment, by the way, to pat myself on the back because I caught a lot of flack for my commentary on Kentucky this summer and throughout the season. And did Kentucky live up to the expectations I set? No. But, guys, at the end of the day, what's so funny about it, you'd have thought I picked Kentucky to win the SEC East for all the hell I caught. I even picked South Carolina to beat Kentucky in the preseason. I picked Kentucky to go 8-4. They went 7-5. I picked Kentucky to beat Louisville. Got trashed for the pick. They beat Louisville. So, just saying. And if you're wondering, Chris, South Carolina beat Kentucky. Why isn't South Carolina higher than Kentucky? Well, guys, if South Carolina and Kentucky played on a neutral field right now, I'd easily take Kentucky. That's just the truth. That's just the truth. Number 6, I've got the Tennessee Volunteers. They smashed Vandy over the weekend. Ho-hum, what have you. Imagine having Vanderbilt as a rival. Really impressive offensive performance. I don't think it's surprising at all what we saw from them in that game. I think most expected that blowout. And, Tennessee, I think all in all, guys, when you look at Tennessee this year, losing all they lost with Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and the offensive weapons and the inconsistencies of Joe Milton, I think 8-4 is not a bad year. I think you look at it like, is 8-4 going to be like the floor for Josh Heupel? And if so, I think you can live with that if you're a Tennessee fan. I think you can live with a floor of 8-4, the goal being double-digit wins on a yearly basis. I think you can live with that. Now, the Nico era is set to begin. I don't know if Milton's going to play the bowl game or not. Either way, the Nico era is set to get going. And so, again, I think an 8-4 season was not perfect for Tennessee by any stretch of the imagination, but overall a solid season for the Vols. Number 5, guys, I got the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss taking down Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, 10 wins. 10 wins for Lane Kiffin and company. Guys, I mentioned it yesterday. I'll say it again. This is the golden age, I think, of Ole Miss football. And Ole Miss fans should be ecstatic with what Lane Kiffin's doing right now. I mean, he's made Ole Miss fun to watch. He's made Ole Miss a national brand, nationally relevant. They're a team, guys, right now, they'd be in a 12-team playoff. How awesome is that to think about? That Ole Miss would be in a 12-team college football playoff. So, Ole Miss at number 5. At number 4, I got the Missouri Tigers, man. I tell you what, talking about teams that would be in a 12-team playoff, Mizzou. I mean, guys, what a season for Missouri, man. What a freaking season. Turns out they have, arguably the best running back in college football, and Cody Schrader. Nathaniel Pete behind him, Luther Burden, who's going to be back next year. Like, guys, Mizzou ain't going anywhere. Theo Weiss, fantastic wide receiver. Brady Cook at the quarterback position, a really nasty defense. I mean, they just took it Arkansas in that last game. You got to love what you saw from Missouri this season. I think Eli Drinkwitz, I'll repeat myself, I think he should be the SEC Coach of the Year. I understand the jobs that others have done, but guys, when you think about the expectations from Mizzou and what people thought of them, for them to be in this spot, what a season, what a year, what a job by Eli Drinkwitz. At number 3, I've got the LSU Tigers, guys. LSU, I put them ahead of Missouri because they beat Mizzou at their place. I understand how both teams are playing. The biggest takeaway here is Jaden Daniels should win the Heisman. If he doesn't, it's a travesty. LSU just, guys, they got to fix the defense over the offseason. They got to fix their defense. Bottom line. They got to get that defense shored up, and I know that's the top priority for folks down there in Baton Rouge, but they've got to get that figured out. Number 2, I've got the Alabama Crimson Tide after escaping death against the Auburn Tigers. And listen, great teams make their own luck. I totally get that. But they'll be talking about 4th and 31, 4th and goal from the 31 for forever. Forever. So, you can't say enough good things about the growth, the evolution of Jalen Milroe. I mean, he is just so lethal with his legs and getting outside the pocket. The rest of that football team coming together. And, guys, I mean, I picked Bama to go 9-3 over the summer. I thought this team might be going 7-5 or 8-4 after the USF game. Great job by Nick Saban and company to get that thing going and get them kind of off the mat and, prove people like myself wrong. And now they're in the SEC championship game against the Georgia Bulldogs, who are number 1, surprise, surprise, in our latest power rankings. Georgia, fantastic month of November. I mean, listen, it was rivalry weekend. Everybody was kind of surviving in advance. Georgia held out a lot of guys, I think, to get ready for the title game. Took down Georgia Tech, an 8-point win. But Georgia, guys, what they've done under Kirby Smart, I think it's 3 straight undefeated seasons. I mean, it's insane. They are the top of college football right now, no pun intended, the top dog in college football, and can't wait to watch 1 and 2 Georgia and Bama do battle in Atlanta this weekend.